Why is it that Virgos drive people absolutely crazy? Why does it feel like no matter how close you get, you're never quite holding the reins? If you've ever tried to guide, push, or even gently nudge a Virgo, chances are you ended up feeling like you were the one being redirected. The truth is, you can't control a Virgo. The more you try, the more you lose grip not just on them, but on yourself. They're not rebellious by nature. They're just unshakably aligned with who they are. And in this video, they don't resist for the sake of resisting. They resist because they've already built an internal world where only clarity and authenticity are allowed. So if you've ever asked yourself why you can't seem to steer a Virgo's path, stay with me. We're about to dive into 20 truths that explain exactly why they were never meant to be anyone's puppet. Let me ask you something straight up. Have you ever tried to tell a Virgo what to do? If you have, you probably remember how that went. It's not that they raised their voice or rebelled with drama. No, it's something even more powerful. They simply didn't budge. No arguments, no chaos, just a quiet, unshakable energy that told you, without a word, this person cannot be controlled. That's the thing about Virgos. They don't need to scream to prove their independence. It's written all over their actions. The way they walk, the way they decide, the way they refuse to be moved unless it's on their own terms. Now, this video isn't about glorifying Virgo stubbornness. It's about understanding it, really getting into the psychology behind why they are so incredibly resistant to manipulation, pressure, and control. Whether you are a Virgo or someone close to one, this message is going to shed light on what makes them one of the most untouchable zodiac signs when it comes to personal freedom. You'll learn why trying to shape or mold a Virgo often ends with you being the one reshaped emotionally, mentally, and sometimes spiritually. So why is this such a challenge? Why do people constantly hit walls when dealing with Virgos? The answer is layered. You see, people often misunderstand the Virgo vibe. On the surface, they seem composed, logical, even reserved. But underneath, there's a constant evaluation going on. They're watching, assessing, organizing information, every word, every motive, every shift in tone. It's like they're running a quiet background program that filters out anything manipulative or inauthentic. Virgos aren't controlled because they are already in control of themselves, their emotions, their time, their standards. And here's the catch, they're not doing it for show. This isn't performative confidence, it's deeply internal. You won't catch a Virgo acting out to prove a point. But you'll definitely notice they're never the ones being dragged along by someone else's agenda. They set their own. And if you're lucky, they might let you walk beside them. Take a moment to think about the last time you felt someone was quietly observing everything, not to judge, but to understand. That's a Virgo. They're not detached, they're just not reactive. And that drives controlling personalities crazy. Because most people rely on reactions to assert control. But Virgos, they've trained themselves to pause, to evaluate, to choose their response if they respond at all. This level of composure doesn't come overnight. It's shaped by years of introspection and relentless self-editing. Virgos are their own toughest critics. They've questioned themselves, corrected themselves, and held themselves accountable far more than anyone else ever could. That's why when someone else tries to push them around, it doesn't land. They've already been through tougher inner battles. So if you're someone trying to control a Virgo, here's the truth. You're playing a game they're not even interested in. They're not resisting you for drama or ego. They simply don't operate on that level. They're focused on growth, clarity, and peace of mind. And unless you bring those to the table, your influence won't last long if it ever gets in to begin with. That's the deeper truth behind their resistance. It's not defiance. It's alignment with their values, their peace, and their higher standards. Let's start with the foundation, because if you want to understand why nobody can control a Virgo, you've got to begin with what's inside. It's not about the surface behaviors. It's about the internal wiring that makes them who they are. And trust me, that wiring is built to be independent. Reason number 20. Virgos are fiercely independent. We're talking about a level of independence that isn't loud or rebellious. It's steady, calm, and absolute. They don't just prefer to do things their own way, they need to. Whether it's making daily decisions or life-changing moves, Virgos rely on themselves first. It's not about ego, it's about trust. And they trust themselves more than anyone else. You might try to offer help or advice, but if it doesn't align with their internal compass, they'll quietly step away and find their own route. Reason number 19. Their analytical minds are always working. You can't manipulate someone who questions everything. Virgos don't jump into decisions. They study the facts, examine the angles, and play out scenarios in their mind before they act. And if something feels off even just a little, they won't move forward. That's why they're nearly immune to pressure tactics or emotional tricks. They're simply too logical to fall for it. Reason number 18. They hold themselves to incredibly high standards. This perfectionism isn't just about being neat or organized. It's a lifestyle. Virgos constantly push themselves to be better, to know more, to do more. That level of self-demand means they're already under their own pressure. So when someone else tries to impose expectations on them, it's not impressive, it's unnecessary. They're already striving higher than what most people expect. And they don't need someone looking over their shoulder. Reason number 17. They're hyper-aware of details. You might think you're being subtle, but not with a Virgo. They notice body language shifts, word choices, even tone changes. If you try to manipulate them, they'll pick it up instantly. Their brain is wired to analyze micro behaviors most people overlook. And once they sense control, they shut it down fast. You'll often find they back away, not because they're confused, but because they saw something you didn't even know you revealed. Reason number 16. They are their own harshest critics. This might surprise you, but it's actually one of their strongest defenses. Because Virgos question themselves constantly, they develop a thick skin. They've already asked themselves the tough questions. So when someone else criticizes them or tries to use guilt or shame as control tools, it barely moves them. They've already had that conversation internally and come out stronger. What breaks others builds them. And that's why external pressure doesn't land the same way with a Virgo. So these 5 traits, independence, analysis, perfectionism, detail orientation, and relentless self-critique, form the root system of Virgo's resistance to control. It's not that they're trying to be difficult. They're simply built to navigate life on their own terms. And if you're trying to influence them without understanding this core foundation, you're going to run into a wall every single time. Let's take a closer look at how this shows up in real life. Imagine a Virgo working in a team setting. The boss gives everyone a task, and while others scramble or seek constant feedback, the Virgo quietly builds a system. They plan every detail, every contingency. Why? Because they don't just want to finish the job, they want to master it. This kind of mental independence makes them frustrating for micromanagers. If you try to control them, it doesn't just slow them down, it breaks the flow of how or think about relationships. A Virgo might love you deeply, but if you start dictating how they should feel, behave, or respond, they'll close the door. Not in anger, just quietly. You'll sense a distance forming, and by the time you realize what's happened, they've already emotionally relocated. That's how much autonomy means to them. They'll choose peace over performance every time. This deep internal structure isn't something they developed overnight. Most Virgos have been this way since childhood, independent thinkers, sensitive to pressure, driven by their own logic. And the older they get, the more refined that system becomes. They learn who drains their energy and who adds value. They create invisible barriers not to keep people out, but to protect what they've spent years building: a stable, authentic, self-governed life. So if you've ever wondered why a Virgo walks away from drama, avoids controlling people, or shuts down under pressure, it's not confusion, it's clarity. They know what they need to stay grounded, and they refuse to compromise that. And honestly, that's not stubbornness. That's wisdom. Here's where things get interesting. If you're still thinking resistance looks like a raised voice or dramatic gestures, then you haven't truly met a Virgo. Because the way they push back isn't loud, it's quiet, strategic, and incredibly effective. Let's start with reason number 15. Virgos do things their own way, on their own timeline. They don't like being rushed, micromanaged, or forced into someone else's structure. If you try to pressure a Virgo to move faster or bend to your way, you'll hit a wall. Not because they're defiant, but because they've already built their own system, one that works for them. And when you disrupt it, you're not helping. You're threatening their balance. They'll withdraw and recalibrate without needing to explain at. Reason number 14. They are self-disciplined to a fault. Virgos don't need outside pressure, they've got plenty of it inside. Their standards are high, and their inner dialogue keeps them aligned. So when someone tries to dominate them or enforce rules, it feels redundant. They're already managing themselves. And better yet, they're consistent, day in, day out. They stick to their routines, even when nobody's watching. That's not control you gave them. That's control they created. Reason number 13. They keep their emotions close to the chest. Virgos aren't ones to blurt out everything they feel. They process, they analyze. And by the time they do share, it's filtered through a whole system of logic and discernment. This emotional privacy acts like armor. You can't manipulate someone if you don't know what they're feeling. And Virgo doesn't give that away freely. Their calm exterior might make you think they're unaffected, but in truth, they're just not letting you in until they're... Reason number 12. They're perceptive as hell. A Virgo will pick up on a weird tone in your voice before you even realize you sounded off. They'll notice the shift in your energy when you walk in the room. They won't always say it, but they log it. And when the pieces don't add up, they won't accuse, they'll simply adjust. That might mean trusting you less, sharing less, or stepping back altogether. This passive resistance is powerful because it's not confrontational, but it's incredibly effective at Reason number 11. They don't trust easily, and that's not a flaw. That's protection. Virgos take their time with people. They observe, they test, they wait. If you try to rush intimacy or force connection, they'll retreat. Because real trust, to them, is earned, not demanded. And once that trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. This guardedness may seem cold, but it's actually deeply wise. They've learned that too much openness invites chaos, and that boundaries are essential to peace. All of this doing things their own way, emotional self-containment, intuitive perception, and selective trust isn't about being aloof. It's about being self-protective. Virgos don't like conflict, so they avoid it by preemptively shielding themselves. They're not confrontational, but they are immovable. And when they start to feel someone trying to pull strings or push limits, they simply disappear, not physically, but energetically. And once a Virgo detaches like that, there's usually no coming back. Let's put this into real-world perspective. Picture a Virgo in a group setting. Maybe it's a team at work, or a group of friends planning a trip. Everyone's throwing out ideas, talking over one another. A controlling person might try to dominate the plan, take the lead, and expect everyone to follow. But Virgo doesn't respond to that kind of energy. They'll go quiet, they'll nod. But inside, they're recalculating, choosing whether this dynamic feels safe or chaotic. And if it leans toward chaos, you'll or think about a romantic relationship. Say a partner tries to guilt trip or manipulate Virgo into staying in a situation they're not comfortable with. Virgo won't fight. They won't argue. But they will begin to pull their energy back. The texts get shorter, the tone shifts, and eventually, they're gone not because they don't care, but because they care too much about their peace to keep explaining themselves. This type of silent resistance is often misunderstood. People think Virgo is cold, heartless, or detached, but really, it's just boundaries. Deep, well-maintained boundaries that keep them functioning in a world full of emotional noise. And if you've ever tried to cross those without permission, you already know you're not getting through. Virgos aren't trying to control others. They just won't let others control them. That distinction is everything. Let's talk about something most people underestimate when it comes to Virgo: their ability to create and maintain boundaries. These aren't flimsy, half-hearted lines in the sand. These are well-defined, thoughtfully placed, and consistently protected rules for how others are allowed to treat them. And it all starts with trust. Reason number 10. Virgos do not trust easily. They approach every relationship, every new connection, with a quiet skepticism. Not because they're cynical, but because they've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves a front row seat to their life. They observe, they wait, they listen, and if your words and actions don't align, they take note. This is their first layer of defense. You can't control someone who doesn't even let you all the way in. Reason number 9. They have a low tolerance for superficiality and illogical thinking. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of intellect and reason. That means surface-level conversations, dramatic outbursts, or vague promises don't hold any weight with them. Try to manipulate them with flattery or emotional guilt. It won't work. They'll see right through it and check out mentally, emotionally, even physically. Virgos crave depth, logic, and clarity. If you don't bring that, they're already halfway out the... Reason number 8. Their critical thinking is razor sharp. This isn't just about being smart, it's about being observant, detail-focused, and unwilling to let things slide. Virgos question inconsistencies. They follow the trail if something feels off until they uncover the truth. This mental discipline protects them from being fooled, manipulated, or swayed by clever language. And once they catch a contradiction, they don't forget it. It becomes part of the file they keep in their mind about who to trust. Reason number 7, they are persistent. Once a Virgo makes a decision, especially one rooted in values or intuition, they stick with it. Pressure won't move them. Peer influence won't shake them. Even emotional appeals won't get them to shift. They understand that giving in to temporary emotion often leads to long-term regret, so they stay the course. This kind of persistence isn't stubbornness, it's discipline in action. Reason number 6. They fiercely value personal freedom. Virgos don't want to be boxed in, not by expectations, roles, or relationships. If you try to clip their wings or limit their independence, it sets off alarm bells. They need space to think, time to reflect, and freedom to move at their own pace. Take that away, and you'll see them pull back, not to punish, but to protect their inner world. All of these traits, skepticism, logic, critical thinking, persistence, and fierce autonomy work together to form an invisible but powerful boundary system. It's not always something they verbalize, but you'll feel it. You'll sense when you're pushing too hard or asking too much. And if you ignore those cues, don't be surprised when the Virgo in your life starts creating distance. That's not drama, that's self-respect. Think about how this plays out at work. A Virgo team member isn't going to entertain vague directions or emotionally charged leadership. They want clarity. They want reason. If the leadership lacks structure or integrity, Virgo will mentally check out. They may not say anything outright, but you'll notice it in their reduced engagement, in the way they stick strictly to what's required, and nothing more. That's not apathy. That's Virgo protecting their boundaries. In friendships, it's the same story. A Virgo may start out warm and open, but if a friend becomes demanding, dishonest, or unreliable, that warmth turns cool fast. They won't start a fight. They'll just start drifting. And the reason is simple. They refuse to be anyone's emotional dumping ground or side project. Their energy is valuable, and they spend it wisely, even in family settings, where boundaries are often hardest to maintain. Virgo makes it clear, usually without words, that respect is non-negotiable. They might help, support, and even sacrifice. But the moment someone tries to guilt or gaslight them, that's where the door closes, quietly, firmly. The beauty of Virgo's boundary system is that it's not meant to isolate. It's meant to preserve what matters most to them: peace, purpose, and personal integrity. That's what makes them so hard to control. Not because they fight back, but because they don't need to fight. They just step aside and let misalignment walk right past them. This is where it all comes together. Everything we've explored about Virgo, why they're so hard to influence, how they quietly walk away instead of arguing, it all points to two powerful truths. First, Virgo's emotional control. They don't react just because tension rises, while others spiral or give in to pressure. Virgo stays grounded. That's stillness. That's not avoidance. That's clarity. They pause, they process, and they respond with intention. Guilt, drama, manipulation, none of it works when someone has trained themselves to choose peace over panic. Second, they plan ahead. Always. Virgo's mind is a map of what-ifs. Before you make your move, they've already calculated the outcomes. You can't corner someone who already saw it coming and quietly prepared their exit. That's why controlling a Virgo feels impossible. They're not reactive. They're ready. So when a Virgo says no or walks away, it's not defiance. It's design. It's emotional discipline meeting mental foresight. They don't need to fight. They just stop giving you access. And by the time you realize they're gone, it's already too late. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine someone confronting a Virgo, trying to force an answer, maybe even using guilt or passive-aggressive tactics, while most people would react, defend, or apologize. Virgo leans back. They're not disengaging, they're scanning, watching your patterns, calculating not just what you said, but why you said it, and what it reveals about you. That's the magic most people miss. Virgo's stillness isn't weakness, it's awareness. And in that quiet space, they're reclaiming power. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that cannot be taken away. They're asking themselves, is this situation safe for me? Is this person respecting me? And most importantly, do I want to keep giving them access to my mind and energy? When Virgo walks away, it's not because they lost. It's because they saw through you. They saw the cycle, the tactics, the hooks, and they decided, I'm not playing. That's a level of strength people don't expect because it doesn't show up as aggression. It shows up as grace. They don't shut doors loudly, they lock them silently and throw away the key. After everything we've uncovered, one thing is crystal clear. Virgos don't resist control just to be difficult. They do it because their peace, their process, and their inner alignment matter more than pleasing others or going with the flow. In a world that constantly pulls us in 1,000 directions, Virgo is the reminder that self-trust, clarity, and quiet strength are more powerful than any loud performance. They don't need to control others. They just refuse to be controlled. And that difference, it's everything. It means they move through life with intention. They choose relationships that nourish them, work that aligns with their values, and environments that respect their rhythm. When those conditions aren't met, they don't explode, they exit. If you've got a Virgo in your life and they've let you in, understand what that means. It means you've been vetted, observed, trusted. Don't take that lightly. And if you are a Virgo, own this strength. It's not cold. It's not rigid. It's refined wisdom in action, the kind the world needs more of. Let this be your permission to stop explaining your boundaries. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to lead quietly, confidently, and on your own terms. Think of it this way. Virgo is not here to fit into your story. They're here to write their own. And those who understand that, who respect that, are the ones Virgo keeps close. Because for them, loyalty isn't loud, and love isn't always showy. It's in the details, the consistency, the way they show up for you even when they say very little. And maybe that's the takeaway here. Virgo's refusal to be controlled isn't just about pushing back. It's about setting a standard. One that says, I know who I am. I know what I need. And I don't need to explain that to everyone who doesn't get it. So the next time a Virgo draws a boundary, doesn't engage, or quietly steps away, don't take it personally. Take it as a sign that you're in the presence of someone who chooses themselves first. And that is not only okay, it's admirable. Because in a world full of noise, a Virgo's silence often speaks the loudest. If this message resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Drop your birthday in the comments if you're a Virgo, or if you love one. Let's celebrate this energy together. And if any of these 20 reasons sounded a little too familiar, let us know which one hit the hardest. Was it the emotional control, the quiet resistance, or maybe the part where Virgos disappear without saying a word? Your story might help someone else understand themselves, or finally understand the Virgo in their life. So don't hold back. And if you haven't already, hit that like button to support content that actually dives deep into who we are beyond the surface. Subscribe if you want more insights like this, because we're just getting started. There's a whole world of zodiac truths that no one's talking about yet. So share your voice below. And until next time, stay grounded, stay clear, and above all, stay true to who you are. And here's something else. If you've ever felt unseen or misunderstood because of your Virgo nature, you're not alone. This is a space where your depth, your boundaries, and your brilliance are not only respected, they're celebrated. So go ahead. Tell us what being a Virgo means to you. How have you learned to protect your peace? What lessons took you years to understand, but now define your life? We read every comment, and you never know who might need to hear exactly what you have to say. Let's build a space where clarity is power, and silence speaks volumes.